Hello and welcome to Blockchain Gaming World Daily with me, John Jordan. So another day, another massive funding round. So news today: Dapper Labs has announced a $250 million investment. Again, this was something that was actually expected. So we knew Dapper Labs was doing another funding round. It raised 305 million earlier in 2021. So it's basically done, what's that, 550 million in 2021, raised in new capital, and it was actually fairly well financed anyway. We'll go and have a look at the spreadsheet of all the sort of all the capital raises. But this is interesting. This is from Roham, who's the CEO, so it's kind of an interesting sort of thread of what they're sort of doing. I guess kind of confirmation bias up ahead of everything. I'm quite bullish on Dapper Labs and their Flow blockchain. I think they've sort of proven themselves to be sort of first movers in this space. Obviously, they did CryptoKitties, was pretty successful. They did Cheese Wizards, not so successful, but you learn from things that aren't so successful sometimes. They realized they didn't want to launch stuff on the Ethereum mainnet, and then they built Flow, which is their own blockchain. It's not as decentralized as Ethereum, because nothing is. Over time, it will get more decentralized. At the moment, it's pretty centralized, to be honest. But anyway, NBA Top Shop launched their NFT basketball collectible project. Launched about a year ago, but got very successful in January, February, March 2021. That's worth about $800 million of market cap there. So they've basically proven themselves to be successful in many of the things they've tried to do. So it's not a great surprise they've raised a bunch of money. I would say they're one of the most successful blockchain blockchain entertainment sort of outfits out there. And the key thing here is, well, something like SoRare is building out its own product, or maybe products in plural. Dapper Labs is building its own blockchain. So I think there will be more successful products and games than there will be successful blockchains. But if you have a successful blockchain that lots of other developers are using, then that's a very sort of valuable thing. So we'll see how it works out. I mean, obviously, Ethereum is a open blockchain that's not really owned by anyone. Dapper Labs at the moment is very much the sort of centralized authority for Flow. I think that will change over time, but it will take time to do that. Anyway, let's go through Rohan's thread here. So they've done a partnership with La Liga, which is the Spanish football association. So all the clubs, I guess, Real Madrid, Barcelona are the big two. I guess not so successful as those clubs not so successful as they have been in recent years. I guess it's always interesting, I think, that the Premier League in the UK isn't being picked up by these companies. I think that's because, or I've been told, their licenses last every 3 years, and the negotiation for the next 3 years won't happen until next summer. So I think people would go for the Premier League, and probably people have started signing stuff up and making negotiations for the Premier League, which is really the big global football league. But you can't access that at the moment. So the Liga is sort of the best. Is probably the second most popular league. So you have Premier League, La Liga, and then sort of France, Germany, and Italy. Sort of a less global brand. So La Liga is pretty good. Obviously, if you have the history, you have all the messy stuff. If you can get those licenses, but clearly this sort of thing is going to be a version of like NBA Top Shop for La Liga. So there's going to be interest in that, and we'll see how that goes. Interesting here, valuation, $7.6 billion valuation. So whenever companies raise money, they raise a certain amount of money, and the process is that they also have to have a value of their company, and that's how you work out sort of how much sort of equity, or how many, in this case, sort of, I guess, tokens or equity the companies who are investing get from the company they're investing in. That's just how the maths work. So companies don't always announce what their valuation is, but in this case, when it's a big number, they do announce it. And this is the biggest number we've seen in blockchain gaming space, although let's say Dapper Labs is sort of its own blockchain Flow as well. So Rohan is saying, started Dapper Labs' simple mission to drive mainstream adoption of decentralized technologies. So they are, creating their own products. NBA Top Shop, we know. La Liga, we've just talked about. They've got a UFC collectible thing coming out. We don't quite know when that's happening. Fairly soon. It was announced last year. All that's running on their decentralized, on the decentralized Flow blockchain, which isn't very decentralized at the moment. OG content is number one priority. So NBA Top Shop, not actually really OG, because that's like 2020. CryptoKitties, so I guess everyone knows this. CryptoKitties is coming to the Flow blockchain. CryptoKitties is coming on Flow. They're doing some Dr. Zeus stuff as well. So it'd be interesting to see what happens to CryptoKitties when that sort of if they're going to remint them onto Ethereum, I don't know. That'd be a million NFTs to remint onto Flow. Could do that, but they could just allow people to sort of bridge them over. We'll see. So if you're interested in NBA Top Shot, there's going to be a whole bunch of other stuff. Mobile app. There is actually a mobile app on the Samsung App Store at the moment, Galaxy Store, but that's because Samsung are an investor, so they've allowed them to do an app there, not obviously on Apple or Google at the moment. So they want to do a mobile app. They want to have non-custodial wallets at the moment. Everything on NBA Top Shop, the custodial, the wallets, the private keys are held by Dapper Labs, so you can't take your assets out. It's sort of a, this is the way they've launched that product, but over time, for people who want to have non-custodial wallets, so hold it in their own sort of wallets where they hold the keys, that will happen. And they're doing some women's basketball as well, if you're interested in that. Dapper Labs going to other sports, obviously football. They've worked out, I think, their model a little bit. So you do have this problem where you have these very expensive top-tier items, and you want them to be expensive, but then you don't want the common ones to become very expensive, because that means people coming into the space can't buy in. If we see this sort of thing with Axie. If the cheapest asset is $100, then people some people haven't got $100 to spend, whereas if the cheapest thing is $1 and you can sort of trade it up to $10, then that provides a sort of a staircase for people to sort of get into these products. And you need to have very expensive things, and you need to have very cheap things. You can't just have one or the other. So interestingly, now they're saying the Flow blockchain has 3,000 developers working on it. And these validator nodes, kind of weird to mix those two things together, but anyway, so a lot of developers on there. I've also seen 600 projects working on Flow. If we assume 90% of them aren't very good, then that still means 50, 60 pretty good projects on there. Google are having one of the companies investing. So the main companies investing are the ones who've invested previously in Dapper Labs. So it's a Cote, or I don't quite know how you pronounce it. Let's have a look back up here. Does he mention it up here? Yeah, Couture, I suppose. Andreas Horowitz, Bondcap. GV is Google, is the old Google Ventures. So some pretty big sort of names in there. So we'll sort of see what's happening. So this is bringing in the right partners, just more than cash. So Google Ventures are also, Dapper has done a deal with Google to run, for Google to be sort of validators of the Flow blockchain, so they can use their data services. So that's sort of interesting. The government of Singapore, very crypto friendly. So interesting to get that from a legal point of view, I would imagine. Having the backing of the Singapore government is pretty useful. Singapore sort of historically runs on British law, so that sort of helps out on that as well. So we'll sort of see what happens. Other teams building on Flow blockchain. So we've got Shopify, Warner Brothers. We don't quite know what Warner's are doing. Some games. These are very indie games. Very not going to take over the world, I don't think. Then we have these sort of other things, avatar things like Genies. I'm not quite sure what that one is. Electronic music. Okay, Alchemy platform is a blockchain development platform. Other things going on here. So all in all, another big another big amount of money going into the blockchain entertainment and games sector. So that's always good for us all. Let's have a quick look at the spreadsheet that shows us what is going on more generally. Okay, so here's my spreadsheet of investments in the space. So we can see here Dapper Labs, $250 million on a 7.6 billion valuation. SoRare, a $680 million investment, Series B on a $4.3 billion valuation. What else? We've got OpenSea, $1.5 billion valuation, and Animoca Brands, $1 billion, probably more than that now. We can see Dapper Labs back here when it raised its $350 million round was valued at 2.6, so it's gone up $5 billion in the space of that time. And this is just like a PE, so this is like the value. It's not a great metric actually, but this is the value, the money in divided by the valuation. The valuation divided by the money in. So you can see sort of Dapper Labs has gone from it's just a comparative. It's not actually very great, so I won't go into it. But Dapper Labs has increased its valuation a lot. Let's put it that way. People are really thinking Dapper Labs is going to be pretty massive. And who am I to disagree? We can see here, the valuations in this spaces are getting pretty big for these companies that are raising now sort of fairly significant sums of money, hundreds of millions. Also interesting sometimes to have a quick look at it's a look at games. There's another one we can have a look at which shows total raised. Okay, so I haven't actually updated this list, but we can see here, this is just looking at sort of the valuation. So total investments to date is actually 2.75 billion. So we're getting on to $3 billion of total investment into the blockchain game sector. So Rare is the most, $783 million. So Dapper Labs has gone up by 250, so that'll be about $607 million that Dapper Labs has raised. So these two miles ahead at the moment, but some other companies have raised quite a lot. Forte, Animoca Brands, OpenSea, Mythical Games all raised over $100 million of venture funding, and probably if they wanted to, these ones could go off and do more funding. If they kind of if they felt they needed to, and probably they given the current situation, the people who are invested in these companies will probably want to invest more money to accelerate growth, particularly for some of these ones that are platforms. So Forte, Mythical Games are platforms that other developers are expected to use. So Engine as well. So we would probably expect another round of sort of money going in the next 6 months or so. Also, Sky Mavis, the Activinity company, are probably going to announce a funding round soon as well. Significant investors, so these are the sort of companies who are pumping money in. So SoftBank into SoRare, Atomico, Bessemer, Andreas Horowitz, pretty big, Cote, however you pronounce it, Bitcraft, Animoca Brands, Digital, Galaxy Digital. So all this, all this stuff is really moving quite fast. So thanks for watching. This is Blockchain Gaming World, which I guess for the next 6 months we'll be covering a lot of investment stuff, which we have been doing for 2021, indeed. But also looking at all these games. After this big investment comes in on platforms, that flips into people announcing games, and we will expect to see on Flow and also on some of these other platforms, sort of more announcements of game companies who are coming to the blockchain ecosystem. So that'll be exciting. So keep it here. Please subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and see you again soon.